behind the wheel, you look so alive. Screaming out 'cause you're not shy. When you're chasing all the stations on the dial. Just this once you let me drive. And even though you're not a fan of big surprises, you played along and closed your eyes. You lit up my car the way you smiled, holding tickets to Coldplay. I was sitting in 7 and you were 8, a Pro W section double A, wearing that yellow dress I'd love to see you in. The lights went down and the mirror ball was spinning. We were in the middle of a crowd, but everyone disappeared till it was you, me, Coldplay, and a brand new love. A brand new love. 6 months later you were gone. I found somebody new and I started moving on. She's alright, we get along, but underneath I know there's something wrong. She's a hit with all my friends, and before you knew it, she was moving in. I hadn't thought of you until I was cleaning out your drawer to put all her things in, and found those tickets to Coldplay. I was sitting in 7 and you were 8, a Pro W section double A, wearing that yellow dress I'd love to see you in. The lights went down and the mirror ball was spinning. It was a sold out crowd, but everyone disappeared till it was you, me, and Coldplay. I miss that love. Where is that love?
Welcome to the inaugural That's Not What I Said event virtually. My name is Scott Smith. I'm with True Network Advisors. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the one and only Deidre Giles. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We are in Lake Guntersville, Alabama. I enunciated, even with my southern accent, I say Guntersville. Do you know how I would say it if I was next door at the barbershop?
How would you say it?
Guntersville.
That sounds about right.
I know. So, but this is your second trip.
It is my second trip, and I've enjoyed both times.
It's a little bit of a picturesque town.
It's gorgeous. The first time I was here was at night, so I was here to see Mark Broussard. Mm-hmm. And then this time I got to be here during the day and go out to the state park. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit on the Chamber of Commerce, so this is not meant to be a recruiting trip for you to come to Guntersville, but if you would like, come on.
Oh, you should come.
Yeah. But
Absolutely.
Mark Broussard was a musical artist. We do a little concert series here too. We have some music today we'll get to in a little bit. But first, let me thank some folks. I want to thank our attendees. Thanks for hanging out with us today. I want to thank your benefit advisor for inviting you. That's what True Network is made of these world-class benefit advisors from around the country. I want to thank our sponsors, because we could not do this without them. We have Principal, Pareto, TriNet, and Legal Shield. Thanks for all you do to help make this happen. Now, we are in a coffee shop. We're in Moody Brews. We're going to meet the proprietors in a little bit because we kind of wanted to have a real conversation, not just like a webinar.
Yes.
But what are we going to talk about? What are we going to learn today?
Well, you're going to learn effective communication and conversational competence. You're going to learn how to navigate those tough conversations that you most often want to avoid, but they are the very things between what you say you want and the outcomes you actually want. And if you can have those, if you can learn how to navigate those conversations, everything will be so much better for you. And so I'm going to give you the tools to do it.
I'm ready for some tools.
You need them.
So I'm going to stop talking so much. I want to listen more because I need to learn this too. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Deetra Giles.
Let's do it.
Applause at home, please.
How do you know when you've communicated clearly? Let me ask you a different question. How do you know when you've gotten your point across? Like, have you ever been in one of those conversations where you were there, you said what needed to be said, everyone agreed, and you thought everything was perfect, except somewhere after the conversation, you realized that what you thought you said and what actually happened did not coincide. And you were frustrated. I mean, you were ready for your victory lap. You pat yourself on the back because you knew you had done a great job of communicating what needed to be done. And when you saw that it didn't happen, you were confused because they agreed with me. We all agreed that what should happen, and it just didn't. And you go back to them asking questions like, didn't we agree? Didn't you hear what I said? So where was the breakdown? The breakdown is very simple. What you said and what they heard are two very different things. Let's use an example that we can all relate to. Let's think about making a pair of shoes. So you have raw materials, you have shipping to a factory, and then you have what happens at the factory. And so those raw materials go from one place to another to produce a product. However, what product? Are we talking about a stiletto factory, a flats factory, a boot factory, or even a wallet factory? Because the materials can make all of those things. Well, communication is the exact same way. I have the raw material, which are the words. I have how I say them, which is the shipment. But here is the part that we can't plan for, the factory. The factory is the person that you're speaking to, and we don't know whether we have a stiletto factory or a wallet factory. And that's where the breakdown happens. So how do we determine the factory? That factory goes through what we call a filter. I don't know what your filters are, and you don't know what my filters are. And every piece of data that we receive goes through a filter. And filters are created by life experience, by family makeup, by the region you were born in, by your religion, by your race, by your gender. All of those things determine your filter. And so what does that mean? Here's an example. Let's go back to our shoes for an example. When I say shoes, I am thinking of a perfectly crafted red patent leather 4.5-inch heel with a slight platform to ensure elegance, effort, comfort, all of those things. Now, here's my question for you. Did you have the same shoe in mind when I said shoe? If you didn't, then something's wrong with you, not with me. But here's the reality. The reality is we said the same word. We understood the same word, but we didn't mean the same thing. And so we would have had a conversation. I would have come to you and said, hey, make me a shoe with these materials. And when you brought me back a perfectly crafted boot meant for hiking, I would have been confused because we agreed that you would make me a shoe. Here's the reality. We think we've communicated because we were clear. What we really meant was I understood what I meant. I didn't ensure that you understood what I meant. And so here's what has to happen. We can't just communicate, we have to communicate effectively. And so how do we know? Let's use a working definition for effective communication. Effective communication is when the giver gives the receiver information and the receiver does what the giver intended. Now, you notice I put emphasis on the word intended. Why? Because what I say and what I mean, or what I mean for you to do, may not be synonymous. What I say is shoe. What I intended was a red patent leather pump. And if I am not sure that you understand that, then I have not communicated effectively. It's not just around understanding, because we don't really know if you understood until we get the outcome. So when we're talking about communicating effectively, our focus is always on the outcome. So how does that happen? That happens when we ask the right questions. Here's one thing I say. Good communicators have all the right answers, but great communicators ask all the right questions. Why does that matter? It matters because I can't tell what you understood or if you will do what I intended until I ask. Remember those filters? The only way I know what your filters are or how you interpreted my data is by asking you the questions. So when I ask the question, you can tell me, hey, I plan to make a boot. I plan to make a wallet. Or Deetra, I have followed you long enough. I know you meant a red stiletto. That's the only way we get to the outcome we achieve. And so what happens? What's the breakdown? It's the way our minds work. That's why what I say and what you hear are two different things. Now, this is a two-sided situation. So when I'm communicating with you, I have a responsibility to ask you questions, but what happens on the other side? As the person receiving the information, I have a responsibility to make sure that I'm clear on what's being asked. I'm clear on what's wanted. I'm clear on what's desired. So that may look like me saying, hey, if you're asking me to make you a shoe, I'm sorry, you are a 6'5" male. Do you like a stiletto in 4.5 inches or 2 inches? Or maybe you want a boot. It works both ways. Oftentimes, we think about efficacy when we are the ones giving the information, but assume that everyone will be clear when we're getting the information. It has to be two-sided. And what we need in this is a process, not a standard. What do I mean by a process, not a standard? A process is something that can guide us through, can help us along the way, a system that we can follow. The standard is what always happened. I always say this, and you always do this. But when we follow the standard, we mess up. Why? Because situations change, people change, scenarios change, and what worked before may not work this time. And so when we talk about what's heard versus what's said, we have to stop and ask ourselves, what's the process we're going through to make sure that communication is happening effectively? And that's what we talk about, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Getting us from what's said to what's heard, from what's said to getting the outcome we want, from doing what we heard to getting what we intended. And that's the essence of what we'll talk about. Now, this is a topic that ranges from how do I get my clients to go in the way that I want them to go, to how do I have a better relationship with my spouse, my partner, my children, my parents. It goes across everything. When we can communicate effectively, it changes every area of our lives. It decreases our stress and improves our outcomes. And who doesn't want to have a better outcome? So I am so happy that you are joining us on this journey to have more effective communication. And I am excited about giving you the tools to do that in your everyday life. Now, here's a piece that we all know so well. If you know Scott, you know that music matters to him more than anything, and nothing around Scott is done without music. So I hear, Scott, today that we have an amazing musical artist here for us.
All right, thanks, Deetra. And she is correct. Music is part of the culture at True. It just makes the world go round. And actually, next door at a place called Dave's Music Hall is a concert with David Ryan Harris and Gabe Dixon. But David has agreed to sing a song just for us, which means just for you. So let's send it over to Dave's right now. To David Ryan Harris, take it away.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to play this song, Shelter. Hope you guys like it.
They made the promises and then they walked away. Farewell, let friends be gone, be gone. By strength I find in you, the one who loves and can't be moved. In your arms I find new gold to soldier on. You are my prayer in times of trouble. I'll be your answer when you call me. I'll shelter you, shelter me. Wake up and keep dreaming. You were born to fly. When your heart is heavy like a stone, I'll lift your burdens high so we can cross the water deep and wide. Lay beside me now and rest your weary bones. You are my prayer in time of trouble. I'll be your answer when you call. I'll shelter you. Show me how an action speaks louder than a word. You are my prayer in times of trouble. I'll be your answer when you call. I'll shelter you. You are my prayer in times of trouble. I'll be your answer when you call me. I'll shelter you, shelter me. Throw it back to you, Scott.
I told you it was good. Thanks, David Brown Harris, and all the folks at Dave's Music Hall for helping us make that happen. And now, the star of the show, the real star of today's show, talking about That's Not What I Said. Let's go back to the one and only Deetra Giles. Deetra?
Thanks, Scott. So let's jump back into this really quickly. We talked about what's heard versus what's said, which means that this misalignment in communication, this misalignment in understanding is predictable. And anything that's predictable can be managed. So how do you manage something that's predictable? You need a framework. You need an outline. You need a model. Why? Because psychology tells us that when people have a formula, it makes things easier. Now let's pause there for a second. Here is what I need you to understand. I said easier, not easy, which means you still need skills. You still need intentionality. You still need to do something. There is no easy button for a breakdown in communication. But when we have a formula, it makes it easier. Here's what's important about that. When something is easier, your likelihood for doing it increases because your likelihood for success also increases. Here's why that matters. If I tell you you might fail in a conversation where there's a high likelihood for disagreement, you won't do it. But if I tell you your success rate will go up just a little bit, you might try it. That's why this matters. So in my book, That's Not What I Said, How to Master Conflict with Conversational Competence, I give you the formula. And the formula is DARE. DARE. ARE. That stands for describe, acknowledge, review, engage. Describe versus interpret. Acknowledge similarities without minimizing differences. Review the narratives you have accepted as fact. And engage for conversation, not conversion. So let's break these down. Describe versus interpret. The crux of many disagreements is the thing that we interpreted versus what we describe. Let me give you an example of this. We talked about filters earlier. Filters help us interpret versus describe. So I'll give you my own personal example. I was raised in a house with a military mother. What that means for me is I see time as a manner of respect. So if I'm ever late for something, you may not see it, but I am beating myself up on the inside because my filter, that military, taught me that time is respect. Now, what that also means for me is if someone's late, I interpret that as disrespectful. And so what I can say is, you disrespected me. That's an interpretation. However, if I describe, I will say you were late. Let me tell you why that matters so much. It matters because when I give you my interpretation, you were disrespectful. I don't give you room to improve. I don't give you room to respond. I only give you room to defend yourself. But when I give you the description, hey, you were 10 minutes late, it allows you to respond appropriately. It allows you to explain, hey, I lost my keys. Hey, the car broke down. Hey, I was behind a car accident. It allows us to engage in a conversation versus an argument. So the first step, description versus interpretation. Step back and ask yourself, what can I say that is observable and something the person can impact versus defending themselves against? The second one, A, acknowledge. Acknowledge similarities without minimizing differences. Here is the hard truth. Similarities make us comfortable. That's why we get stuck there. This is why you've had the same argument 50 million times. Why? Because you get to the point where you agree, and when you get to that point right where you might disagree, you stop. Because you know the next step is discomfort. The next step is uncomfortable, and you don't want the discomfort of a disagreement. So you stop. But that's where the real work happens. Here are some words you can use. Hey, we pretty much agree on everything except this one area. Can we talk about this so we can get alignment across the board instead of having to repeat this conversation again? It's okay to have a disagreement while acknowledging that there are things that we agree on. It doesn't mean we hate each other. It doesn't mean I wish death upon you. It just simply means we have a different way of approaching the problem. The third one is probably the most difficult piece of them all, and that is R. Review the narrative you have accepted as fact. When I accept something as factual, I don't even question it. For example, I'm not going to age us all here, but some of us grew up hearing that Pluto was a planet. If you were educated before 2006, Pluto is in your number of planets, right? So when a 5-year-old comes to you and tells you, Pluto is not a planet, you argue with them. Hey, I have shoes older than you. How are you going to tell me what the planets are? Well, in reality, if they were educated after 2006, Pluto being a planet is no longer factual. And if you're approaching that conversation with that fact, guess what? You're wrong. I remember being in a dispute or even in a mediation with the manager and someone else. And the manager said to the other person he was having a conversation with, I will fall on this sword. I will die on this sword. And I looked at the manager and said, that's unfortunate because that sword is rusty. Simply because they were basing their stance on facts that were no longer factual. They've been at the company for 15 years and they were basing their facts on a thing that happened 15 years ago. And the company was no longer that company. The leaders were no longer the same leaders, and the processes were no longer the same processes. And he was not willing to listen to younger associates who had newer, more accurate information. When we are in a conversation, we have to ask ourselves, am I still dealing with things that are factual, and are those still the facts here? Oftentimes, we will find those facts have changed. The last part, this is the second hardest part, and it's the E. Engage for conversation and not conversion. Who amongst us goes into a conversation with the idea that we don't want to win the conversation? But winning can often be the most detrimental piece to an effective conversation. When we go in to win, we circumvent the outcomes and we focus on being right. Sometimes us being right is not the outcome that we need to get. Stepping back and being open to the different options, the different opportunities, the different possibilities changes everything. And that's what we want to have in a conversation. Imagine this for a second. Now, you would never do this, but I'm sure you have a friend that would, because you and I, we're the upright citizens. We would never do these things. But imagine your friend who was in an argument, and in that argument, they knew they were winning. I mean, they had the person dead to rights. There was no coming back from them. They were dead and gone because I have all the information to win this argument. And then all of a sudden, in that argument, a new piece of information was inserted. And your friend gasped and clutched the pearls. And in their head, they realized, I might be wrong. But they were too far in to step back, and we were going with this one. And they are taking that to their grave. They will never admit they were wrong. But when we engage for conversion versus conversation, we get stuck in those moments of, I have gone and I fought too hard for this to admit that I was wrong. Here is the problem in that scenario. When someone fights, realizes they're wrong, and won't back off of it, two things happen. Neither are good. One, the person speaking thinks, this piece of data should have changed their mind. Either they aren't as bright as I thought they were, or number two, they are as bright as I thought they were, and they lack integrity. Neither of those are good in the scenario. So when we step back and stay open to the possibilities of there being another way, a better way, or even the possibility that we're wrong, it changes everything. So when we're trying to get this communication across, be effective, and have conversational competence, we need to dare. Describe, acknowledge, review, and engage. Describe versus interpret. Acknowledge similarities without minimizing differences. Review the narrative you've accepted as fact, and engage for conversation, not conversion. This is the formula from getting from what I said to what you heard, and making sure we get the intended outcome from our communication. Now, we've said a lot, and I think Scott and I should have a coffee.
Indeed, it is time for coffee, Deetra. Come on over. After you. So you remember, you were in here yesterday, so you've already met the lovely Ree and the lovely Dustin.
Absolutely, always looking beautiful. I love your fashion as well.
Likewise.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
Oh, yeah. And so we need some coffee. You were in here yesterday.
I was.
They had these cute little names for some of the drinks. What did you order?
I feel like this is a judgment time, and I don't want to be judged, but I do think it's appropriate. I like the drama queen because I'm bringing the drama.
The drama, that is spot on. I get a couple of different things. I feel like I don't want to be judged on this. I either get the Macho Man or the Sassy Britches. Which one of y'all think fits me better?
Sassy britches.
Definitely sassy britches.
Set myself up for that one.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry, but
So one, I could have got the Hot Mama though. Okay, Sassy Britches. So one drama queen, one Sassy Britches. Is that cool?
and the whiny baby's definitely out. You're just.
I'm not gonna do the, well, you know.
Eh?
I feel like I'm coming at you a little hard and making fun.
I am used to that. So caffeine, are we good with that?
We're good with it.
Okay.
I love it.
Let's do it up.
yeah.
Alrighty, you guys ready?
Thank you guys.
There you go, drama queen.
Thank you.
All right.
This is
Appreciate you guys.
amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
You ready to get
So
back to
good
work?
to see you
ready.
both.
Yeah.
We're going back to work. Y'all ready?
All right.
Okay. let's
Take
do it.
care.
You
Bye,
too.
girl. See ya.
Bye.
Okay. Now we're ready. We're caffeinated
Yes.
and we're good to go. Or we soon will be. So before we go to the last session, just a few questions. Anytime I'm talking about business, I'm talking about listening, I'm talking about what I want, I always think about parenting.
Yes.
And when I hear you talk about a desired outcome and things like that, I just think about how many times I want to yell at a kid or I want to control the situation, but yet what I really want is the best outcome. Do you think about these things when you're talking about, are you always thinking about business? Or are you thinking about personal life and parenting and things like that when you're talking about, that's not what I said, and when you're doing public speaking?
I actually think about all of it. I think one of the biggest problems we have is that we try to segment our lives as if we're totally different people depending on where we are. Like, I'm a different person at work than I am at home. And people say that, but it's just not true. We have more control when we're at work. We realize that because the consequences of behaving a certain way at work, we're better at controlling it, but we still have those same desires, right? It's like, I remember my husband told me once, we moved into a home, we had this situation, and he said, our son is gonna wanna jump from there. And I said, why? He said, because I wanna jump from there. I'm just an adult and I know better. And so the reality is the ideas are still there. We control ourselves differently. So we have the same issue whether we're at work or at home. That's why in the book, when I first started writing it, I said, I'm writing a business book. And then I realized this goes across all areas of our lives. And so in the book, I hit the hard topics and I talk about everything from how to ask your boss for a raise to how to address the family predator at Thanksgiving. Because these are the tough conversations that we need to have, but just don't know how.
I'm going to ask you a question we have not prepared for. Are you ready for it?
I am.
So you've spoken at 2 in-person events for True, and today, and every time I see you speak, you're so prepared, you're so professional. There's almost never a misstep. Is that because you're preparing? I guess you can't over prepare, but is it preparation? Is it instinct? Is it you know your material so well? I just don't, there's a lot of people on the other side of this camera that hate public speaking more than anything. I'm just curious how you became so good at what you do.
Well, here's the reality. Public speaking is the #1 fear in the world, across the world. So it's more than heights, more than anything. Public speaking is the #1 fear. And part of it is because we're afraid of being judged. We know if I'm in an audience and I'm looking at 1,000 people, all of those people are making judgments about me. And none of us want to be judged. We're trying to control what they think, what happens. And I got to a point where I'm like, I don't care. So that helps a lot. The other thing is, when I'm in front of people, I value speaking about things that I know. And so if someone calls me to talk about something that's not an area of expertise, I'll turn it down. This book took me, it's 15 years of my research, from teaching in academia to writing white papers to doing research on actual people to reading research. So I know what I'm talking about. And then the other part is I do think I have a natural gift for speaking. I'm very comfortable speaking. I grew up in the arts, from playing an instrument to being a classically trained dancer from 3 years old. So I've been on stage in front of people, so I'm comfortable being up there, and I'm comfortable making a mistake. I remember when I was younger as a dancer, my instructor would tell people, when we get on stage, do not follow Deetra, because she will mess up with confidence and you will think you're wrong. And so I became comfortable knowing that if I make a mistake, I can fix it, I can step back, I can recalibrate. But really, when I'm speaking on stage, I value having done the research. And so when I'm speaking from there, I speak from a level of confidence. The flip side of that is I tell people there's a difference between confidence and audacity. And I happen to have a healthy combination of both. And confidence is data. So people mistakenly say, I need more confidence. And they don't. Confidence is what you do the research and why people go out and get multiple degrees and multiple certifications, because they're trying to gain confidence. Right. And they have the confidence, just don't have the audacity. An example I give is, I'm a crazy dresser. Like, people will see this jacket and think she's channeling Prince. And it's cute and I love the idea, but I could never wear it. Confidence is knowing it's cute. Audacity is wearing it. And I have a healthy combination of the two.
I love that. And something I missed in your introduction is a bunch of HR leaders watching right now, you were in HR for a good portion of your
Absolutely.
career.
20 years plus.
So you're not just making stuff up. No. Speaking of not making stuff up, I think we should have our last session.
I think we should.
you ready?
I'm ready.
Give it up one more time. I like introducing you like this when you're going to walk up there and talk. You ready? The one and only Deidre Giles.
Let's do it. Now, when I talk about the DARE model and effective communication, some of you, well, not you would not do that. Your friend thought I was going to give you all the tools to win the next fights. You sat down and thought, oh, this is my moment. Let me take copious notes because I have a fight coming up and I need to win. Well, let me disappoint you for a moment. That is not what I'm teaching with the DARE model. What I am teaching you is to find the joy in losing. I think that might be the title of my next book, The Joy in Losing. What do I mean by that? There are times when we lose the conversation, but win the outcome. And when we lose focus on the outcome, we can't find the joy in losing. There were times, think about it, there were times when you weren't right, but you got what you wanted. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, you and a coworker were in a debate about a project. On the project, you said, we need more marketing dollars. No one agreed with you, but you made the argument, and with that argument, you got a little bit more. Not all the marketing money you wanted, but just enough to get the outcome you needed. You did the project, the marketing dollars came through, and the outcome you expected was achieved. Now, here's the reality. You won. You didn't get all the marketing money you wanted, but you got the outcome, a better service client, a better product, something better. But you don't even get to take your victory lap before your coworker comes back to you and says, see, I told you we didn't need all that marketing money. Now, when I said that, your blood probably boiled. Like they could have done anything, but they chose to audition for the Petty Olympics. And instead of saying, you know what, I'll take that, you engage in the conversation to convince them that you were right. Now, because you needed to be right in their mind, you did not get the full joy of losing. That's what happens. Instead of reveling in the outcomes that we wanted, instead of reveling in the success that we achieve, we decide, I need to be right in someone else's mind. And that snatches away the joy in losing. Here is what I want you to understand. When you lose focus of the outcome, you lose focus on being effective in conversation. And what that also means is you fail at conversational competence. This is a big theme throughout the book. That's not what I said. Conversational competence, as I defined it, is the ability to engage in a productive and effective outcome to a conversation that has a high likelihood for disagreement. What that means is we stay focused on what matters, not us being right. Because we can always lose that. We revisit it, we're hard about it, we harass people about it because I need to be right in your mind, not I need to focus on the outcome. And this is why DARE is so important. It is not the model to make you win the argument. It is the model to help you get the best and most effective outcome. Now, what does that mean? That means when I'm approaching a conversation, I use the DARE model to strategize about how I should proceed, even if that means not proceeding at all. Some of us view exiting a conversation as failure. If I don't engage in the conversation, then I failed, I've lost in some way. Sometimes the best outcome is you not engaging. Let me give you a personal example. Once I was on vacation, I was coming back from vacation, got to the airport. Now, I was in an airport in another country. We get to the airport, it is the last flight of the evening. And as we're sitting there, we hear the announcement come on. The flight is canceled. As you can imagine, we went crazy. I mean, everyone jumped up, they were screaming, they were upset, they were rushing the gate agent. And then, as if telling us the flight was canceled wasn't bad enough, the gate agent also announced that because it wasn't the fault of the airline, they were not going to handle our accommodations, and the airport was closing and we had to leave. You could imagine the pandemonium that ensued. Everyone rushed the gate agent. They were screaming. They were talking to this person the way I wouldn't even talk to an animal. And in the midst of it, I looked at the person I was with and said, let's go. A person watching us leave panicked, like, where are you going? We have to argue with them. We're going to win this. And I realized they were wrong. I stopped, I described, and I looked at the scenario. Using my DARE model, I realized the person they were arguing with had no authority to change anything. And no matter what they said or how much they argued, they were in a losing battle. Using my model, I walked away. Hey, how do I get the result I want? How do I describe, acknowledge, review, and engage? I walked away to a more quiet area. I called the airline customer service, asked for a leader, got that leader on the phone, and I took joy in losing that argument to win on the other side. What did I get? Not only did I get accommodations, I got a meal voucher, I got transportation, and I got an upgrade on the first thing leaving that next morning. There was joy in losing that battle to win the war. Why? Because I was focused on the outcome, which was getting home and not being homeless for a night in another country. When we recognize that the DARE model is about strategy and not about winning, we are better able to handle the situations that come to us. Now, what's your scenario? What situation are you walking to? What ideas do you have about wanting to win the argument versus getting the outcome you need? Where are you failing at this? Where is your ego getting in the way of having an effective and productive end to a conversation? Now, some conversations we need to engage in and some we need to walk away from. How do you know if you need to engage or walk away? The question is, what is the outcome of this relationship, not the scenario? Prime example. I go outside, I look up, and I tell someone standing next to me, the sky is a beautiful blue today. And they say, blue? The sky is candy apple red. I can do one of two things. I can try to convince them the sky is blue, or I can say, the color of the sky is to them has no impact on me. You have an amazing day, and I can walk away. Now, which one I choose depends on the relationship. If I'm talking to my spouse, we may need to have a conversation because I plan to be with this person. So I need to know, are you perhaps colorblind? Something happened to your vision? Do we need a doctor here? Are you having a stroke? What might be happening? Or if it's some random stranger I will never see again and have no interaction with, I may nod my head, walk away quietly humming, and go home and talk about them to my family. How we handle it determines on the relationship going forward. But here's the reality. We have to recognize that every conversation does not need our intention, and being right and getting the best outcome are not synonymous. And so stepping back, using the DARE model to decide, how do I strategize in handling this conflict? That will even help you knowing the power dynamics. The describe may be, who has the real authority to answer the questions we have? The review may be, neither of us know this information. We need to get another party involved. The acknowledge may be, hey, I acknowledge that I have this one way, you have another way, and your way might be right, mine might be right. Let's do some research on what's the best outcome. And the engage might be, hey, both of us could be wrong. Let's put our ideas together and see how we can do that and get the best outcome involved. So it's not just about winning the conversation. It is about strategizing to get the most optimal outcome. And here is the biggest thing. You have to recognize in any conversation, you don't win when you are right. You win when you get the intended outcome. And that is what all of this is about. Making sure you get the outcome you started out trying to achieve. Not being right, but getting the best, most effective, most productive outcome. And that's when we begin to use communication to affect performance, productivity, and profits. And that, my friends, is what it's all about. Now, Back to you, Scott.
Man, so good, Deetra. Thank you very much. I want to go back to that parenting. There were so many times my kids are all grown now, but I wanted to be right and win the argument rather than get the desired outcome. So anyway, thanks for making us better. Thanks for helping everybody. Before we get out of here, I want to thank David Ryan Harris, and the folks at Dave's Music Hall, different Daves, by the way, for letting us do the music thing over there. Thank Deetra again for being so great. Thank our agencies. These are the most innovative and creative employee benefit agencies in the country. And their guests, your clients, potential clients, referral sources, whoever you are, thanks for taking the hour with us. Thank our sponsors again, Pareto, Principal, TriNet, and Legal Shield. Thank the creative crew here for the time to take this. Thank Dustin and Rhea at Moody Brews for letting us take over. They should have been home a long time ago. They're sitting in the back waiting for us to get out of here. Did I miss anybody? That's good. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again soon. True love. Take care.
You are my prayer in time.